Welcome to another Ask Arlington. I'm Jay Warren. Ask Arlington is a show that is dedicated to answering the questions that you have about what's happening right here in our city. And we have a special episode today focusing on Hurricane Harvey and the massive flooding that's been brought on by that storm throughout the Gulf Coast area, particularly Corpus Christi that saw those hurricane winds, but also the massive flooding in Houston and in Beaumont and so many other communities throughout that region. Now, we have been getting a lot of questions about this from you at home, and particularly about how you can help. And joining me now to answer some of those questions are two very special guests for us, our Mayor Jeff Williams. Mayor, thank you for being here.
Great to be here, Jay.
We appreciate that. And also Irish Hancock. Irish is the administrator of the Fire Department's Emergency Management Office. And Irish is maybe not a familiar name or face to you at home, but he's the man who coordinates every crisis that happens here to make sure that our residents are safe. And in this case, as we're talking about what's happening down the Gulf Coast, how other residents in the state, how we can also help them. So
yes,
we
sir.
really do appreciate all of your work on a regular basis.
Thank you for
it's
having
really
me
important. I thought before we got to any of our residents' questions, Mayor, I know you have been talking with a lot of leaders throughout the state. You've been watching what's happening down in the Gulf Coast area. Give us your reaction and what you've been hearing.
Well, it has been devastating. Flooding, it's amazing how many ways that it can affect people's lives. And then I've been hearing from our Arlington residents that, hey, we want to help, and already there's been tremendous generosity. And I've been very proud of our first responders who were down there at the very beginning helping. And in fact, the state called upon us there before it ever hit for us to be there. Of course, our police department and fire department are among the best in the state and working hard too. Yeah.
Well, as the mayor mentioned, the city has been working to help with some of this already and started really before the storm hit. In addition, our residents have been getting involved in this. I want to make sure everyone's aware of a website and a resource that you can have if you're wanting to kind of roll up your sleeves and get involved. You can go to the city's website. That's www.arlingtontx.gov. On that site, we are constantly updating information about the organizations, the nonprofits, the schools, the businesses, you name it, that are collecting cash and goods to benefit Hurricane Harvey evacuees, as well as how the city, as I mentioned, is rolling up its sleeves as an organization to help down there. And Irish, I think this is a good chance for us to bring you into the conversation here and tell us a little bit about how the city is already mobilized. As the mayor mentioned, we did it actually before the storm hit, and what we've been asked to do up to this point.
Well, I'll start with the Arlington Fire Department. There are several members that are on the state of Texas's Texas Task Force 1. They were deployed last week before the storm made landfall, and as soon as it made landfall and you started seeing the devastation, they were already in action helping search and rescue those citizens or evacuees who were impacted by the storm's damage.
Well, we've gotten a lot of questions from our residents, and they started pouring in really as we started first seeing those images of the devastation that was happening down in the Gulf area, and they've kept coming. So we wanted to answer some of those, and we got the experts here. So let me get to the first question here. This one comes to us from Alice. Alice writes, will there be any shelters opened in Arlington for Harvey refugees or evacuees? The convention center, big churches. She mentions that she would love to give some hands-on kind of help there. Irish, what about the evacuation centers?
Well, in our region, the North Central Texas region, we have several shelters that have opened and ready and are accepting evacuees as we speak. We are in that process. We are in the batting order for shelters to open. We actually have one shelter identified already. It is set up, ready to open, but we will open once the state of Texas makes the request, because we want to ensure that we have evacuees coming to Arlington before we start expending the resources and opening up a shelter that someone may not come to. So when there is the need, absolutely we will open a shelter for those in need.
Yeah, one of the things we have to keep in mind with this is it's still an ongoing event. Beaumont was experiencing the flooding actually starting last night after Houston had it for a couple of days. So we just don't know at this point what numbers, if any, evacuees that we're going to have and what the need is yet, right, Mayor? This is kind of still building.
It is, and it is a very coordinated effort, and we have been through, of course, Katrina and then several since, and we are a part of a great, well-oiled machine here that is trying to help all of the people down in southeast Texas.
Absolutely. We've got experience with it too, and we've got the knowledge, the know-how to make sure that we do it the best way possible. Well, our next question comes to us from Sibby. She writes, do you need volunteers to help? We get this question a lot about volunteers. And because I think we have a generous community that is very kind. They want to help out. So Irish, is there a place for people to go to volunteer?
Well, I will start with that. We have been utilizing our cache of volunteers that we have right now for setting up the shelter and getting ready for any other events that we may be having to host or perform on behalf of the state. If someone is interested in volunteering, they can go to the National VOAD website, which VOAD stands for Volunteers Organizations Active in Disasters. The website, they can go to that website and it will tell them how to register to become a volunteer in our region, and they will be utilized where they're needed.
And the key here is we just don't know the need yet.
Exactly.
So you already have some volunteers ready to go. If the need grows, we may need more people to come out and volunteer.
Absolutely.
Well, our last question comes to us from Sherry. Sherry writes, where is a clothing donation drop-off for flood victims? Mayor, we got not only questions like that about clothing, but about other donations. I know you've been talking to a lot of our nonprofit organizations. You're actively involved with them on a regular basis anyway. What would be your advice there?
Well, let's start with clothing. Mission Arlington is receiving that. And of course, Mission Arlington is taking a leadership role with our community. Also, we've got other faith-based organizations, but start at Mission Arlington. And then we also have had the question of where do I give money? Well, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and United Way, all great organizations that if you give the money to them, you can assure that it's being used. There are a lot of, understand already, a lot of bogus organizations that are cropping up. Please stick with our mainstream and our big three, and of course Red Cross leading the way.
And we know that those financial donations can make the biggest impact because those three organizations that you mentioned, they know how to spend the money and the most appropriate ways to get it to the victims and get the needs met that they have, right?
That's right. In fact, I was in a meeting this morning that was exactly the conversation there, and they are needing money. Money is what they need most of all.
I don't know that Texas has seen a storm, if our nation, in fact, has seen a storm like what has been unfolding down the Gulf Coast. And so the help from Arlington, from North Texas, from really the nation and the world, I think are going to be necessary. So thank you so much to both of you for coming in and for giving us that information. As we said, this is a building situation. We'll have more information coming up as we get more requests for assistance and more ways for you to be able to participate in that. You can go again to our website, www.arlingtontx.gov. Follow us on Facebook. And also on Twitter, we'll be posting continuous updated information there. And I think, Mayor, I think you would agree with me, we don't all have financial resources, we don't all have the time to give, but we all can say a thought or say a prayer for the people who are suffering down there.
Well said, Jay.
Yeah. And also for those first responders who are down there risking their lives too. So please do that. Again, thank you for sending in those questions and for participating in this Ask Arlington. And again, pray for the victims in the Gulf Coast area.